In part 2, I shared how God allowed Noah to face ridicule while building the ark. I believe that God was testing Noah to see how faithful he was to him, as well as to his task to finish the ark. On this same theme, I want to share the story of two men portrayed in the Old Testament in the Bible. In the prologue to Job, God shares with Satan, Job is a faithful servant, and that there is no one on the earth that matches up to his uprightness, God-fearing character. And Satan challenges God, saying, you have put a hedge of protection on him, and he's rich. If you take that away, he will curse you. God accepts Satan's challenge and gives Satan the authority to take Job's possessions, but not to harm Job. Wow, Satan wastes no time. The very next morning, Job is hit with the news that his camels, his donkey, and his oxen have been taken by robbers, and his servants are killed in the process of trying to prevent this. And in addition, the house collapses and kills all his sons and daughters. Wow. Do you think God was wise in taking up this challenge? Please write your comment below. In verse 20, we read, Job tears his robes and shaves his head and goes on his hands and knees and worships God. In verse 21, Job says, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. God is all-knowing, and Job was faithful to God throughout all that. I never want that to happen to me, and I'm sure you wouldn't either. In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13, we have God's assurance that he will never allow us to be tempted beyond what we can bear, and he will provide a way out. We'll leave Job and we'll take up the story of Joseph. I believe God allowed Joseph to have a glimpse of his future when he dreamt those two vivid dreams. Joseph was Jacob's favorite son. I believe God didn't like this favoritism and allowed Jacob to suffer for it. When Joseph's brothers got him alone, they stripped off his coat of many colors and they sold him to travelers heading to Egypt. God was with Joseph. He was bought by a kind master, and God blessed Joseph's master, and Joseph was put in charge of his master's affairs. Then he was imprisoned, being falsely accused of having sex with his master's wife. I believe God allowed this to happen so that Joseph would meet up with Pharaoh. Had it not happened, he would have just stayed in his master's household and been of no use. While Joseph was in prison, God was still with him. The person in charge of the prison was kind to Joseph, and Joseph interpreted the dreams of two of Pharaoh's servants who were put in prison. And Joseph said, it is my God that I serve that is giving you this interpretation. God gave Pharaoh two disturbing dreams, and none of Pharaoh's wise men or magicians were able to interpret them. Joseph was sent for to interpret Pharaoh's dream. He had been in prison for over 2 years. When he was brought to Pharaoh, he said, "I can't interpret your dreams, but the God I serve can." Pharaoh told Joseph the dreams, and Joseph said to him, "The meaning is the same for both. God plans to put this in place very soon. In Egypt, you will have 7 years of bumper crops, and then 7 years of severe famine. I suggest, Pharaoh, that you put a wise man in charge of looking after the food, and put most of that food in storage to cover you for your 7 years of famine." Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of this, and he was made the governor of Egypt. Wow! Joseph went from being a slave to the governor of Egypt with God's help. I like this part the best. In Genesis chapter 45, you can read the whole story, but I'll just share this. This is when Joseph actually revealed his identity to his brothers and showed mercy on them and forgave them. And this is also when Joseph brings his family to live in Egypt to protect them from the famine. And Joseph is united with his dad after many years of being deprived of being together. They would have been very, very grateful. In Genesis chapter 50, verse 20, Joseph shares with his brothers, "What you meant for evil, God meant for good, to save many lives." What a wonderful God. I hope you have a wonderful day. Cheers for now, and have a groovy day.